What we're going to be going over tonight and what I wanted to touch base on is to really make sure that we're going over a mobility checklist when it comes to what you should be doing before you're working out, what you should be doing after you're working out, and what you can even be doing during. So when it comes to mobility, there's a certain way that you should go about it so that you can get the most benefit. Because what I mean by mobility is the body should be moving in a certain way. There's actually 7 different ways the body should move. It's an overhead press. You have your push press here. All right. If you're standing on the side, like your push up, you have your hang. Your body should be able to move without any inefficiencies in those 3 positions. Then you have your front rack position with your palms up. You should be able to bring your palms back with no pain. You have your squat where you're squatting down. You have your hinge where you're hinging over for your deadlift position. And that is all 7. There's actually 2 others where you're back in a lunge. That's number 8. You can put an asterisk behind these next 2. So back in a lunge is number 8. And being in a pistol squat, being able to squat down on 1 foot with 1 foot out in front of you, that is an asterisk number 9. So the body should, and you should have control within it to do all 7 of those movements. And if you don't, you're lacking mobility. And if you're lacking mobility, then you need to have a checklist to go over so that you can regain it, gain control, be safe in those positions, own those movements, and be able to progress your fitness. So let's begin. First 3 things that we're going to talk about here in this mobility checklist is priming movements. This is what you're going to do before you work out. All right. These are going to be the movements and the methods that you want to incorporate before you work out. And some of these that you'll even incorporate during that session so that you can begin to mobilize and stretch out as those muscles are activated. First and foremost, we start with prioritizing motor control. Those 7 different movements that we just went over, those archetype movements, those are the movements that we want to prioritize. If whatever we're going to be doing for the day, if we're going to be squatting, well, we should get into a squat, opening up our hips, moving around in that position, prioritizing the movements that we're going to be using for the day. If we're going to be doing a bench press, if we're going to be doing burpees, if we're going to be doing a pull-up, making sure that we're working, if we're doing a pull-up, this overhead position, working the muscles that and activating them. If you've been to some of my classes, this is what a lot of our warm-ups will consist of. This is why we'll go through jumping jacks, because it's a very general exercise that gets your body moving. We'll go into air squats, opening up the hips, into your lizard with rotation, stepping your feet back, reaching up towards the ceiling, opening up the hips and chest, and going into an up dog to down dog. Those are my favorite 4 to really get someone's heart rate up, to get them moving, and just a really good general overall warm-up. But first and foremost, you want to prioritize the movements that you're going to be doing for the day. Do those in your warm-up, incorporate something that's going to actually activate those muscles. And when it makes sense, if we're warming up my wrists and forearms, if I'm going to be doing something on the elliptical, if I'm going to be rowing, because it's just, we're not working the muscles that are going to be used. Next thing that you should be doing, because what if you can't get into positions? What if, okay, that's great and everything, we're going to be squatting today, I can't air squat. What do you do next? Well, you're probably dealing with some joint capsule tightness with this, and we're going to do some joint capsule mobility. What this is think of your joints of being like a door hinge, okay? As you sit all day, as you're in these bad positions, as we're at our computer desk, we're hunched over at our desk, we're seated, we're hunched over at our chairs and everything all day. Just like a door that's sat on hinges too long and hasn't moved, dust builds up. Think of it, and it really doesn't build up in your muscles, but think of it like that for the analogy's sake. But dust is building up in those joints, and you're losing room within that gap for it to actually move. So think of it like your shoulder. You're actually rolling your shoulders forward. Now we're in this position long after the fact we're done at the computer. This is just now our natural position. We've shortened the muscles in our chest, we've lengthened the muscles in our back, and now we're stuck in this position. The joint capsule in our shoulder is now losing some of that ability to move around because a ball and socket joint It should have room to move around a full 360 here. And as we round those shoulders forward, it loses and it begins to grind on our clavicle, which then causes us shoulder pain. It causes us to have the external rotator cuff pain. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is to mobilize the joint, to get the dust out of the hinges so that the door can swing again, so that it can move without impingement. You take a band. This is where you can wrap a band around your shoulder. You can stand or wrap a band around a rack, or wrap it. What I do is wrap it around my door on my pull-up bar and let the band pull my shoulder backwards as I move my shoulder about. You can do this with your hips, wrapping a band up around your leg, high up into the crotch on your hips, going down into a squat or going down into a lunge as it's pulling you to the side or one way or pulling you backwards. What it's doing then is it's pulling your hips so that it gives a little bit of space, and you mobilize within that. You move your body around and that joint around so that you begin to work and mobilize and free up and strengthen while you're in good position, while you're forcing yourself into good position. Of course, if you're working with a trainer, if you work with me, or if you have a super friend that's there to help you, they can help pull you into position while you mobilize. And there's different things that you can do. So this is also one of those things that you can incorporate while you're lifting. If you're doing a bench press and then you get done with your set and you want to mobilize and put a band around your shoulder to work out some of the just kinks, you can do that in between sets. Banded flossing, okay? Banded flossing, what you're going to be doing is same thing here. You're going to be getting into those positions where you're actually putting the band around your hips and moving in and out of position, okay? So not just moving, or not just going into position, but moving in and out of position. Same thing with the joint capsule mobilization. What you can do here, and to help with the joint capsule mobilization, just so I don't forget and so I don't miss this point, is what you can do is place a tennis ball. If you're dealing with some elbow pain or if your elbow's tight, place a tennis ball in your elbow pit here, or even underneath your armpit if you're dealing with some shoulder pain, and you can squeeze that tennis ball, which then is going to open up the gap in the joint. So it helps to force that gap open, and then you just squeeze there. You're going to mobilize around, move it around, helping to push out that joint. So that's also an option here for the joint capsule mobilization. That banded flossing, wrapping around the band around your arms. You can do this with your wrist and making sure that you're moving in and out of those positions so that you're getting pulled back into some solid and correct positions and not mobilizing in the wrong ones. Does that make sense to everybody? Does this help you understand exactly what you should be doing before you are working out, before we go into an exercise? And you can just put it in the chat. That makes sense there. I'm going to pull up the chat here. And notice I didn't say anything about getting down on the ground, reaching for my toes. I didn't say anything about getting down on the ground with the ball and roller or anything. I didn't say anything about sitting here and stretching out my arms and forearms and holding it for tension, because that's coming up. I just want you to be aware and take notice of that. So now we'll get into what we're going to do afterwards. So these are your priming movements, what you do after the fact, what you do after you lift, or what you're going to get the most bang for your buck, I should say, because a lot of times if someone is tight, if they come to me and they're immobile, their muscles aren't working. Susan, I know you're on the call. We work together and we go through a lot of stretching before we even get into the actual meat of our workout, just to make sure that things are moving correctly and you're in good position. So I will incorporate these in the beginning of workouts, but it's case by case. But you shouldn't be doing these no matter what at the end of your workouts to make sure that you're actually getting the muscles to correct themselves, because this is a learning thing. Think back up here, we're prioritizing motor control, your ability to actually move your body within space and your ability to control it intrinsically. Think of a child learning to walk. They're learning how to use our bodies. As adults, the things that we do, if we don't use it, we lose it. And that's why we have to learn how to use our bodies again. So what we do afterwards, sliding surface mobilization, SMR, or self myofascial release. All this is making sure that our skin and our muscles are moving as they should, and that our skin's not extra tight. Think of this almost like when we swell in our ankles, or if you've ever been real tight in your back. And the best way I can describe this, and what I mean is sliding surface, your skin should move back and forth on your hand. You guys see that on my hand? It moves back and forth here. It should have that ability, that flexibility, actually move across the surface of your skin. If I make a fist and I really tighten down, it doesn't have as much give here. And if I do a workout where I pump up my forearms and it's really pulling my skin back, then it gives no give. That's not good, because what that's actually doing is like it's causing almost like an external cast on your body, because that hardness, that tightness in that muscles, that swelling, not letting your muscles move efficiently, not letting them move how they should. So rolling out with a foam roller, rolling out with the barbell where you're really crushing on your legs, getting a massage, working out and massaging out the areas, sliding across the surface. This is where you can do scraping. This is where you're on the ground, even with the lacrosse ball. So sliding surface mobilization, making sure that you're regaining the ability for your skin, for it to move across your tendons, your joints, your bones, everything there, your ligaments, with ease, without impinging. So last thing here, muscle dynamics. This is your stretching. Now, this isn't just getting down on the ground, going into a hurdler stretch, leaning down to your toes and just stretching. That does nothing for you. It's not going to gain you any more mobility. It's not going to gain you any more control of your body. It's not going to allow you to build motor control. What we need to do is use muscle dynamics to actually stretch. This is where you go to the end range of your stretching capability. So just for example, I'm going to use this again, stretching back. This is as far back as I can stretch my hand. So I'm not just standing here stretching. When we're using muscle dynamics, what we're going to do is push into it, tense all the muscles, activate them at this end range of motion so that I'm gaining strength at the end range of motion, okay? Because if we don't have any strength, if I can't do anything from this position, if I can't push my hand and my fingers away, if I don't have the ability, but they're just pulling back and I have no strength here, then it's worthless. So you activate in this position, push and through, and you hold and tense up. Same thing with if you're going down into a squat, if we're going down into a couch stretch with your leg up behind you, you don't just sit there and stretch, you tense up, you get tight and try to relax a little bit deeper into that stretch, all right? If you've taken yoga, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll begin a movement, you'll do a couple breaths and you'll relax deeper into that movement. They'll have you tense up and relax down just for that purpose. So does this make sense for you guys as far as what you're going to be doing after you work out, what you should be doing afterwards? Give me a yes in the chat. That does. That makes sense. And also, if you guys have any questions, if there's anything that came up through all this, yes, it makes sense. Perfect. Is there any questions that came up from any of this? Anything that, I guess, piqued your curiosity or changed your mind, or I guess changed in the way you thought? Anything there? You guys can put that in the chat, and you can guys just give me a no if not. That way I know. We'll move on. Got no questions here. I think we're all good. All right, guys, I'm going to end this recording here. I appreciate everybody watching through. If you have any questions in the future, please reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to help you out.